Coming at you live from outside of space and time. I'm Nyiam. Welcome to the feedback loop. I wanted to make a video today about ideograms. This is titled, a case for visual ideograms. I've made videos about the ideogram before. I'll put a link in the description to some of those older videos. The ideogram is like the initial, handshake with the target. This is a reflexive mark that's made on the page when the viewer first takes the target ID. So this is kind of like the remote viewing signal's first manifestation in a remote viewing session. It's usually looks like a squiggly reflexive mark. It comes out different for depending on what the target is. It can manifest in different ways. Here on the screen I have one of my older videos trying to explain kind of the Ideogram Phenomenon. It's kind of like the main anchor, the first pure piece of data that comes through, and it communicates the gestalt of a target. So like, is it land, is it air, is there water, is there life at the target? The ideogram is a reflexive mark made by the viewer when first contacting the target. It's like a visual shorthand. It can even form into like a language over time. You find that every time there's life at the target, you'll get a certain kind of ideogram. These are usually done very quickly, like less than 2 seconds. So your conscious mind kind of doesn't come in and draw whatever it wants to draw. So I've talked about ideograms many times before. Today I wanted to talk about visual ideograms. So this is another kind of ideogram that can be performed, another technique to make contact with the target. Conceptualizing the methods of remote viewing and the process of how it happens. You can think of the body as kind of like a computer, and the remote viewing information comes in a signal. We call it the signal line. Using your intent, you can kind of process the information, get the information you want out of the signal line. So like smells, tastes, temperatures, textures. So you can kind of what would be the right word? You can kind of filter the signal for the kind of information you want depending on your intent. So usually the ideogram, the spontaneous ideogram, is done through your hand. You know what I mean? You take the target number and this rapid burst of energy comes out, and that's kind of the first thing we use to shake hands and make contact with the target. I have plenty of videos where you can see me doing, making ideograms and probing them for information. Over the last many years, I've been training myself to do a different kind of ideogram. This is called, a visual ideogram. So using my intent now, instead of kind of bringing that initial information through the hands, I'm bringing it into the visual processing realms of the body, the body computer, however you like to think of it. I've been training myself over the years to develop a spot in my mind called blackboard. So I close my eyes and I've been training my subconscious to place target imagery in a specific place at a specific time. And so using this technique, just like how an ideogram is used initially to kind of get that first initial impression of the target, I've been using visual ideograms as well to get onto the target, to get that first bit of insight into what gestalts or what the nature of the target might be. So I just wanted to go through a whole bunch of examples of the visual ideogram and kind of help make a case for the visual ideogram phenomenon. So here are a couple, I'm just going to go through some examples here. Let me zoom this out a bit. So yeah, you can see here. So when I do this visual ideogram, just like the ideogram, I'm looking in my mind, I'm closing my eyes and looking on this place called blackboard, only for a very short, quick period of time. In the beginning of a session, and I've made a video about this before as well, on bandwidth, you know, bandwidth of consciousness and the aperture and different brainwave states. In a beta state, mind state, which is awake and aware, the aperture, or the amount of time that you have contact with the target is very short. It's about a second and a half. So these, what I'm about to show you here, these are all 1.5 second time spans of communication with my subconscious visually by looking on Blackboard. So here's an example of a target I worked. So this is like the very first thing I do in a session. The first 5-10 seconds of a session, I'm producing I'm doing usually three of these visual ideograms to get my foot in the door. So you can see here I saw a rectangular structure with repeated verticals, and you could see the target down at the bottom here was kind of these computer boxes. I can't remember exactly what the target was there. Here's another example, 1.5 seconds of communication with the subconscious through visual ideograms at the beginning of a session. The target was a skateboarder on a ramp in the air, going off a ramp, and you could see here I drew a curved aspect and a life form in the air, so you could see how that kind of matches up there. Let me switch this view. This might be better. Here's another example of a visual ideogram. How the target can impress visual information very quickly. These are fleeting images, and it takes, like I said, it's taken me a long time to build this communication path and begin to consciously recognize these images, because they're very subtle, and they form up and disappear very quickly. This target was Bohemian Grove, a Bohemian Grove ritual, and you could see there's a big flame here with a bunch of life, and my initial 1.5 second look there, I saw something that looked like fire there. A base jumper, you could see the triangular shape, and there's a middle section in the pattern of the cloth there, and you could see my visual ideogram here, triangular shape with a kind of like a section cut out in the middle. So you can imagine if you were shown that image for just sometimes less than a second, how much of it would you be able to remember? Would you be able to draw that image accurately? That's kind of the challenge of the visual ideogram right at the beginning of a session. So these aren't, this is just the beginning of a session. If you can get this at the beginning of a session, you can imagine, building up the target contact after 40, 50 minutes, an hour of working. You can get a lot more accurate data than this. This is just the first little peek at the target. Here was a visual ideogram I did. The target was kind of like this shoreline scene, and there was these birds flying around, and I saw this shape here, the beak, kind of the wing there. So you could see how the visual information is accessible in the form of a quick burst, just like the spontaneous ideogram. You can train yourself to produce these visual ideograms as well. I was working a target. I saw the outline of two people kind of hunched over, hands out. The target was a riot in Ferguson, and this was the target image here. You could see three people here kind of hunched over. I saw at least two. These images are very fast, right? They kind of flicker in and they're gone. So it's like sometimes you're like, what did I just see that? What did I just see? You kind of have to just quickly sketch down what you saw and move on to the next one. This isn't really the point in the session where you're gonna dig in deep. This is, like I said, just the first contact with the target. moving on to some, over at Crypto Viewing, we look at cryptocurrencies, right? So, I've worked dozens and dozens of these. So right at the beginning of a session, I'm doing these visual ideograms. And here there's a cryptocurrency Monero. And, the logo's this circle with an M shape in the middle. And you could see right in that first initial 1.5 second look on Blackboard, I saw a circular shape with, with the diagonals coming through the middle. So that's a pretty good, pretty good capture for the first, 10 seconds of a session. This was a target, Klima DAO, kind of a lesser known crypto here. I looked on Blackboard and I saw a triangular shape with kind of like some spokes coming out of the side in different directions. And you can see there the logo of the crypto is a triangular shape with kind of these lines going off in different directions. Sometimes these come as War-Collier images. If you know that phenomenon is when sometimes different aspects of the data come disjointed or in different positions than they are in the actual photo. So some interesting things happen once you really start digging into this whole phenomenon. I worked at Target that was Dr. Fauci, and I look on Blackboard and I see someone's nose and glasses. I wrote there this is like someone wearing glasses, and you could see Dr. Fauci wears glasses, so you can really get some good insight into the target processing information visually, right? A picture says, is worth 1,000 words, they say. Our visual sense is what orients us in everyday life. It's our main sense, they say dogs use their smell as kind of like one of their main orienting senses. For us, it's like, I forget the number, it's like 89 or 90% of what we perceive comes from our visual sense. So to harness that in remote viewing is important, and it can really help when you're gathering data and kind of get you to understand better what you're working with. This was one we just did like last week. We were doing Ethereum, and you could see there I got the initial part of the logo there. Just a quick flash, just sketch it down and move along. I don't stop here and say, oh, the logo is Ethereum. This is just, you kind of just run and gun. You capture it and you move on. So now I want to get into some video clips of doing this live, so you can kind of get a feel for how this works. A lot of remote viewing is people read about it in books, right? You read different steps and stages, and I know for me personally it was hard to kind of conceptualize how this actually works by just reading it. And it was when I started seeing people actually do remote viewing in real time is when it really clicked for me. So I could, just like learning a sport, like it would be hard to read about baseball and learn how to play it, or just read about basketball and learn how to play it. It would be a lot more helpful if you saw someone playing basketball. You'd learn a lot faster how it kind of works. So I'm going to jump into some video clips here of some visual ideograms, and then I'm going to show the target photo and how they kind of line up. So let's check these out. Ideogram. Shapes like that. There's a lot of vertical lines and something more rounded there. LTHGIU. Second visual ideogram. A rounded shape. It's my second capture. LTIZ-HGIU. Yeah, I'm seeing something kind of shaped like that. So you can see there, I did 3 of these visual ideograms, just quick looks, drawing it, and here's the target image here. So here's the 3 visual ideograms I just did, and then the target image. So you could see that plume, the shape of that plume coming through strongly in the visual ideograms. This is just the first, like you saw there, the first minute low-level data collection, processing this visually as a visual ideogram. Here's a this you can find this video on my my YouTube. I got the video of the session here. So here's another 3 visual ideograms, real time. I see some lines up above. It's my first capture. Let's go. HRE5R. HRE5R. Yeah, I'm seeing these lines coming down like this from above. HRE5R. HRE5R. Yeah, I'm just seeing these lines. So you can see there, I saw these kind of lines and streaks coming from above in the air, and the target was North Korea rocket launch test. So you could see at the top here my visual ideograms, and then the bottom some of the actual target imagery. So hopefully you can see how this kind of works, right? You can, almost anything, you can almost see any kind of pattern or shape can end up coming up in this initial look, and it kind of orients you in the right direction. Not to jump to conclusions, but usually by the time the end of the session comes around, you'll be able to look back at the visual ideogram and be like, oh, that's what I was, that's what, the information that was being passed from the subconscious. So here's another example of some visual ideograms. See this as a rounded type feature like that. It's my first capture. One 1475-4010. 1475-4010. Seeing these lines like this. It's my second capture. One 1475-4010. Third visual ideogram. Something like that. It's my third capture for this target. And here's the comparison there. You know, I had a rounded feature. The target was this, it's like a well hole in the middle of a body of water. So, you know, gross shapes usually are what come through, but some, you know, it can vary, like, you know, like with the Dr. Fauci, I clearly saw, you know, like a nose with glasses. So, you know, it all depends on what the target is. You know, a variety of things can be perceived in this initial look. And here's another one. Some kind of features like this. It's my first capture. 0-5955. Second visual ideogram. Again, seeing this something like this. That's my second capture. Peaking shape. Peaking shapes like that. It's my third capture. And then there's here's the target imagery and the visual ideogram. So, you know, looking at these, you know, I knew right away that, you know, we're probably dealing with some land features here, peaking shapes, land features, even some of the way these the texture on these the mounds here, you can see that coming through in the visual ideogram. So, you know, hopefully that was interesting. You know, you can check out my YouTube channel. I have a whole bunch of, you know, videos of me working targets. You can see a bunch of these visual ideograms and the session that follows. Just wanted to, you know, introduce another concept, you know, put it out there for people to see, help make the case for the visual ideogram phenomenon. It does require, you know, training, just like, you know, learning the initial ideogram takes a while to kind of get it. Training myself to do this also took a while, but it's a very powerful tool, and, you know, the results speak for themselves. So, you know, hopefully this was interesting. If you're interested in remote viewing, check out my website, thefeedbackloop.info. You know, I try and update it regularly with, you know, hits and world events and different, you know, stuff that I make. There's also practice targets on there if you want to try some of this for yourself. If you appreciate, you know, what I'm doing here, feel free to, you know, make a donation through the channels here on the page. You know, PayPal, cryptocurrencies. If you want to see remote viewing, you know, a group of experienced remote viewers applying the skill towards financial markets, cryptocurrencies, and, you know, kind of woo-woo mystery targets and stuff like that, check out the Crypto Viewing Patreon at patreon.com/cryptoviewing. Thanks for watching. Peace and love, y'all.